Many of us have gotten used to using windows to do our banking, to order food, or even to order coffee. But can you imagine going to a window to ask for spiritual advice or counsel? Well, a similar thing seems to have happened in the Middle Ages. Men and women felt called to remove themselves from the ways of the world, and they would attach themselves to a church or a cathedral. The hut or the cell or the room in which they lived was referred to as an anchor hold, as the person anchored themselves to the building and the life of the community there. And the man or woman was called an anchorite or an anchoress. On Sunday mornings at Holy Trinity, parishioner Simone Crockett is leading us through a study of a famous anchoress and her writings. Julian of Norwich lived in the 14th century in and around Norwich, England, and she was attached to a church called St. Julian's. We don't know Julian's real last name, but she's referred to by the church where she was an anchoress and lived many of her years. I've advertised the position of anchorite to our friend Bishop Andrew St. John, but so far he's been more interested in having his own apartment and being very helpful in churches all over the diocese. But Bishop Andrew, the offer still stands if you'd ever like to be an anchorite at Holy Trinity. We've got the windows and we're pretty good cooks. In 1373, Julian received a series of visions from God, and she later wrote those visions down. One version is known as the short version of her showings or revelations of divine love. The longer version, written 20 years later, is the version we're mostly studying on Sunday mornings. Julian of Norwich is known not only for having authored the first book in English written by a woman, but she's especially loved for her mixture of complex theological insight with homey images for understanding God. Writing in the 14th century, Julian understands the Holy Trinity like a mother who is wise, loving, and merciful. She used metaphors when writing about Jesus in relation to ideas about conceiving, giving birth, weaning, and upbringing. From these images and other clues in her writings, scholars believe that Julian must have been married at some point and had a child, perhaps losing them both to the Black Plague or some other illness. Julian's spirituality has influenced many, especially in the Anglican tradition, but also in the wider Catholic faith. The poet T.S. Eliot incorporated the words of Julian that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. He also used Julian's "the ground of our beseeching" from her 14th revelation. Both of these can be found in his poem Little Gidding, the fourth of his 4 quartets, published in 1943. At one point, Julian writes of God and says, "God is to us everything which is good and comforting for our help. He is our clothing, who wraps and enfolds us for love, embraces us and shelters us, surrounds us for his love." I love that part about God being our clothing, like a favorite shawl or scarf or jacket or sweater. Whether you join us online or in person, whether you study Julian of Norwich or simply look around, I hope you will too see in the everyday expressions of God's love for you and the world.